Sunglasses, check. Hat, check. Pepsi, check. What's that other thing? Oh yeah, thick skin, check. Let's go. Welcome to Golden Bluted, home of the college football fan. So if you are a college football fan, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button because that's all we do around here. And when you get a second, go check out the Patreon page. We have a lot of great perks over there. Also check out our revamped and redesigned website. Created by Joey Foster, we have 9 great writers, led by our 2 head writers, Michael Walker and Scotty B, the Baylor King. In this video, I'm going to have a positive approach to things. I'm going to talk about the teams that I think will rise, have a better season than what they did last year, and maybe a better season than what their fans are expecting. Time to move on to the Big Ten. The 2 teams that I had falling in the Big Ten was Michigan and Michigan State. What about the teams that I have having a better season this year? The first team, Ohio State. And they didn't have all that bad of a season last year, but it was a slight letdown. I think they'll be better. They finished the season 11-2 Rose Bowl champs. Now, their for sure losses? None. There are no for sure losses for Ohio State. What about for sure wins? Well, Notre Dame at home. A lot of people would put that in 50-50, but I'm telling you, Ohio State's much better than Notre Dame this year. Arkansas State at home. Group of 5 team at home. That's a for sure win. Toledo, another group of 5 team at home. Wisconsin at home. For sure win. Rutgers at home. Iowa at home. Yes. For sure win. At Northwestern, win. Indiana at home, win. At Maryland, win. That is 9 for sure wins. What about the 50-50 football games? Well, they have to go on the road to Michigan State. But remember, I said Michigan State was taking a step back. I'm saying that's a win for Ohio State. At Penn State. Penn State's one of those teams that I think will be on the rise next year. I'm going to say that's a loss for Ohio State. Then finally, Michigan at home. I do think they avenge that loss from last year and get a W against Michigan. So I have Ohio State going from 11-2, including the Rose Bowl. They finished the regular season 10-2 to 11-1 in the regular season, getting to the Big Ten championship, probably winning that. And Ohio State's probably going to be a playoff team this year. Next team that's going to be much better. Penn State. Last year they went 7-6. For sure losses for Penn State. I don't think there's any for sure losses for Penn State. What about for sure wins? Well, the group of 5 team Ohio at home, win. The group of 5 team Central Michigan at home, win. Northwestern at home, win. Minnesota at home, at Indiana, Maryland, and at Rutgers. That's 7 for sure wins. That equals the amount of wins that they had last year. What about the 50-50 football games? Well, the first game of the season at Purdue. I think Penn State pulls that out. And they go on the road to beat Auburn. I just think the atmosphere is too much for Penn State. That's a loss. At Michigan, yes, I do have Michigan taking a step back, but I think the road environment is just a little too much for Penn State. I'm giving them a loss. To get Ohio State at home, I think this is a big bounce back win. You already know it from what I said about Ohio State. I have Penn State winning that. And finally, Michigan State at home, with Michigan State taking a step back. This is at home. I'm giving Penn State a win. So I think Penn State could jump from 7-6 to 10-2. You talk about a big time jump. Penn State is definitely capable of having a 10-win season this coming college football season. Finally, Wisconsin. Last year they finished season 9-4. That's actually not a bad season. I mean, they could actually have a better season than that? Oh yeah, I do. First up, for sure losses. At Ohio State. Yes, I think that's a for sure loss. What about for sure wins? FCS Illinois State at home. Washington State at home. Group of 5 team New Mexico State at home. Illinois at home. At Northwestern, Purdue at home, Maryland at home, Minnesota at home. That's 8 for sure wins. Now they're 50-50 football games. They go on the road to Michigan State. I think Wisconsin pulls an upset and beats Michigan State on the road. Another big-time road win at Iowa. I don't think Iowa is going to be as good of a team this year. I think Wisconsin has enough talent to go on the road and beat the Hawkeyes. And then finally at Nebraska. I think Nebraska is going to pull an upset somewhere. I think this is where they pull that upset. So I have Wisconsin losing to Nebraska. So going from 9-4 last year to 10-2 in the regular season, yeah, that's a better season than what they had last year. Look out for the Badgers. Let's head out west now, the Pac 12. The teams I had falling, well, Arizona, they're already at the bottom. I just don't see them rising up. Oregon, I think they fall. And Arizona State, I think they fall big. What about the teams that are going to go up? Well, the first team, UCLA, they went 8-4 last year. Listen, Chip Kelly's recruiting at a very good level at UCLA. They are being overlooked. This year, their for sure losses, none. I don't think UCLA has one for sure loss on the schedule. What about their for sure wins? Group of 5 team Bowling Green at home, FCS team Alabama State at home, Group of 5 team South Alabama at home, on the road at Colorado. Yes, I think that's a for sure win. Get a Washington, a bounce spot Washington at home. For sure win though. Stanford at home. Yes, I think it's a for sure win. At Arizona State, for sure win. Arizona at home, and then at Cal. That is 9 for sure wins. What about the 50-50 football games? Well, they do get Utah at home. I just think Utah is going to be a better team. That's a loss for UCLA. They have to go on the road to Oregon. That's a tough road environment. Even though I have Oregon taking a step back, I don't think UCLA is going to go on the road and beat Oregon. That's a loss. And then finally, USC at home. This is going to be a very evenly matched game. It's a home game. I think UCLA beats their rival USC at home. I'm giving them a win. So UCLA could go from 8-4 to 10-2. Next team in the Pac 12, USC. Last year they went 4-8. Guys, if they go 7-5, that's a bounce back year. But they could finish even better than that. For sure losses on the road to Utah. Sorry, Trojan fans, you're not going to go on the road and beat Utah. What about for sure wins? Group of 5 team Rice at home, Arizona State at home, Washington State at home, at Arizona, Cal at home, and Colorado at home. That's 6 for sure wins. Already 2 more wins than last year, and it makes you a bowl team. What about the 50-50 football games? At Stanford, I think you avenge that loss from last year. That's a win. Fresno State at home. Fresno State is capable of beating USC, but if USC plays their A game, they'll win that game. I'm saying a win. At Oregon State, they actually lost to Oregon State last year. This year, I think they beat Oregon State. Win. At UCLA, you already know, Trojan fans, I have you losing to UCLA. Loss for USC. And finally, Notre Dame at home. I think they'll beat Notre Dame convincingly, to be honest with you. But I still have it as a 50-50 football game. Win for the Trojans. So USC could go from 4-8 to a 10-win season, 10-2. Yeah, that is a massive jump. They could be the team that has the biggest jump in wins in 2022. And finally, Washington. Nobody's talking about Washington because they had a big-time letdown year last year, just like USC. They went 4-8 last year. What about their for sure losses? Just one. At UCLA. What about their for sure wins? Well, I think they beat Group of 5 team Kent State at home, FCS Portland State at home, at Arizona State, Arizona, at Cal, Oregon State at home, and Colorado at home. That's 7 wins already. You're a bowl team. That's already a bounce back season. What about the 50-50 football games? Michigan State, but that's a home game, so I think you win that. Stanford at home, I think you win that as well. At Oregon, tough road environment. I think Oregon beats you. That's a loss for Washington. And then at Washington State, that's a rivalry for the Apple Cup. If that was a home game, I'd give you a W. Probably a for sure win, but this is on the road. I'm going to say you lose your rivalry game. But that's still a big bounce back year. 4-8 to 9-3. You can't complain with that. And finally, the Big 12. The 2 teams that I have falling. Oklahoma State, even though I do think they'll be a bowl team, like an 8-4, 7-5, something like that. And TCU. TCU could finish dead last in the Big 12 this year. Beware, Horned Frog fans. What about the teams that I think will have a bounce back year or a better year than what they had last year? You already know I'm going to say it, West Virginia. But this is not a homer pick. If this offseason hadn't happened and things were exactly the same, I would not be predicting to have a better year. Last year they finished an abysmal 6-7, losing their bowl, getting obliterated by Minnesota. This year their for sure losses, just one at Oklahoma State. And yes, I do have Oklahoma State taking a step back, but that's a road game. And Oklahoma State will be a good team despite the fact that I have them taking a step back. What about for sure wins? Kansas at home, FCS Towson at home, and TCU at home. That's only 3 for sure wins. I know, that makes you nervous, West Virginia fans. So what about the 50-50 football games? This is where West Virginia has to learn to win because that's what ruins their seasons. Not winning those 50-50 football games. The first 50-50 game is the first game of the year at Pitt. But from what Pitt lost and what West Virginia gained, I think that's a win for West Virginia. At Virginia Tech, yes, that's a rivalry. It's on the road, but Virginia Tech's going to be abysmal. I'm going to say that's a win. At Texas, I think that could be a loss. I think Texas will be better than what people realize. I'm not saying they're going to win the Big 12, but Texas will be a bowl team. A lot more difficult to beat this year. Baylor at home. I think West Virginia beats Baylor. In fact, Baylor has never beaten West Virginia in Morgantown. I think that streak continues. At Texas Tech, I think they avenged their loss from last year. Win for West Virginia. At Iowa State, that environment is just a curse for West Virginia. So I'm going to say a loss for West Virginia. I think this is the year we beat Oklahoma at home. So I think we win that 50-50 football game. And then finally, Kansas State at home. Kansas State, going to be a better team, but it's in Morgantown. I'm giving the W to West Virginia. So going from 6-7, including the bowl loss, up to 9-3, West Virginia fans will take that for sure, with a chance of having a 10-win season. And finally, the last team that I think is going to have a much better year this year, Kansas State. They could be a sleeper. Last year they went 8-5. That's not a bad year. What about their for sure losses? None. I don't think they have one for sure loss on the schedule. For sure wins: FCS South Dakota at home, Group of 5 team Tulane at home, Texas Tech at home, at TCU, and Kansas. 5 for sure wins. So their season will hinge on those 50-50 football games. The first one, Missouri at home. I think Kansas State gets the win. At Oklahoma. They've been competitive with Oklahoma and outright beat Oklahoma. But this year, I think it's a loss. At Iowa State. I think Kansas State doesn't have issues with the road environment at Iowa State. I think they beat Iowa State. Oklahoma State at home. That's a win. Texas at home. That's a win. At Baylor. I have that as a loss for Kansas State. And finally, at West Virginia, another loss for Kansas State. So from 8-5 to 9-3, not that big of a jump, but a decent jump, and it could be a 10-win season. I have West Virginia and Kansas State as the sleepers in the Big 12. Y'all let me know in the comments section whether you agree or disagree with me, and where you agree or disagree with me. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next show.